Jai Shri Radhe. Today is day 112 of the readings of the 84 Vaishnavas. Sab Vaishnavan ko Jai Shri Krishna, Shri Vallabhadisha ki Jai, Jai Shri Radhe. Krishna Das, continuing from yesterday in the story of Krishna Das, and it's part, be back there. Part 2 continued. Krishna Das stayed there, and the two Rajas went to the emperor and told him that the manager in question, Krishna Das, had come, and also told him that he would definitely not be giving the Bengalis back their jobs. He has given the job to some others and is letting the Bengalis go. The emperor said, "Okay, if he wants to take them on, he can. What is there here to argue or fight about? The Bengalis should be sacked." Raja Toramal and Raj Birbal reported this to the Bengalis. "The emperor has decided that you should be relieved of your service and that you should silently just leave now. If you argue, you will invite grief. We have now tried to make you understand." The Bengalis were disappointed and left. They stayed in Vrindavan. Krishna Das took his leave of Rajas Toramal and Birbal and returned to Sri Giriraji. Krishna Das then called two scribes and had them write a letter to Sri Gosaiji saying, "As per your instruction, the Bengalis have been removed from the Seva. They have had their chance to plead with the emperor and the struggle is over. The Bengalis made false claims to the emperor and had dismissed them. Please now come back." The two scribes took the letter to Sri Gosaiji. After reading the news, Sri Gosaiji quickly made ready and left Adel. He arrived in Jetipura, called Krishna Das, and in front of Srinathji officially appointed him as the temple manager by draping a shawl around his shoulders. Sri Gosaiji said to him, "O Krishna Das, you have done a great service to Srinathji. Only you could have routed the Bengalis. Now I appoint you as the manager of all Srinathji's affairs. Even if I myself make a mistake, please do not hesitate to point it out. You will be in charge of all those who serve here. Serve in such a way that even Srinathji himself will do your bidding. You are a great disciple of Sri Acharyaji, and whatever you do will be to the benefit of all. Now please do get on with serving Sri Govardhanaji in the best way possible. Be constantly vigilant." Krishna Das then bowed to Sri Gosaiji and Srinathji and began to manage the temple affairs. From that day on, there was a special seat established on which Krishna Das could sit in his position as the manager. The Bengalis then heard that Sri Gosaiji had come to Sri Govardhanaji and was adorning him. They got together and arrived there. They complained, "Sri Acharyaji gave us Srinathji's Seva and Krishna Das came and threw us out. You should allow us to take over the Seva again." Sri Gosaiji replied, "You all left Srinathji's Seva and ran down the mountain, so this is all your fault. Sri Govardhanaji is no longer wants you in his service, therefore there is no way you can return to the service." The Bengalis all began to moan. "Well, if we can't serve, how are we all supposed to eat? When we were serving the Lord, we were well provided for. Please now give us some other kind of service to do. Please tell us if there is another deity whom we can serve in order to live." Sri Gosaiji gave them his elder brother Sri Gopinathji's deity named Sri Madan Mohanji and told them to serve him. The Bengalis took that lord to Vrindavan and began to serve him there. Bhav Prakash. Inner meaning. Sri Gopinathji is considered to be a manifestation of Sri Baladevji, Lord Krishna's brother, and he is the form of Maryada, in other words, a devotional path that follows the lawful way of worship. His deity was also worshipped along the dutiful lines, and the Bengalis' mindset was also in that very groove. That is why he gave them that deity. In this way, Sri Gosaiji put an end to all the wranglings in one fell swoop and forever. Part 2 continued. Sri Gosaiji then appointed some Gujarati Sanchora Brahmins to serve the Lord in his Seva. He put Ramdas in charge of the Seva. Bhav Prakash. This Ramdas, Bade Ramdas in the list, is a Sanchora Brahmin from Gujarat. In the eternal Leela, he is a Sakhi of Sri Chandrabali named Manoram. She has a very lovely nature and carries out Sri Chandrabali's instructions. In the same way that Sri Lalitaji is very skilled in making Sri Swaminiji and Sri Thakurji's Leela arrangements, here Krishna Das, who appears from that very Leela form of Sri Lalitaji, skillfully arranged and was in charge of all the Lord's affairs, and fully graced by Sri Govardhanaji. So also, in the same way, this Manoram, Ram Ram Das was in charge of all the inner temple servants and services, and also did what Sri Gosaiji ordered. Ram Das was born into a family of Sanchora Brahmins in Gujarat. He was 20 years old when both his parents died. Ram Das set out to have the holy sight of Sri Ranchoralaji in Dwarka, and on the way he had the sight of Sri Acharyaji, who was giving a discourse. Hearing Sri Acharyaji's rendition, Ram Das realized that he was the Lord himself, and that his own life would be fulfilled by taking shelter in him. Of this he was fully convinced. When Sri Acharyaji had finished speaking, Ram Das approached him and, after bowing down, asked Sri Acharyaji to accept him as a disciple. Sri Acharyaji told him to go and bathe, which he did, and when he returned, Sri Acharyaji initiated him with the Lord's name and Brahma Sambandh. He then instructed Ram Das to commence Seva of the Lord. Ram Das told him that he had his father's Sri Thakurji and that he would serve him in any way that Sri Acharya instructed. Sri Acharyaji then bathed at Sri Thakurji in the 5 nectars, and Ram Das stayed there with Sri Mahaprabhuji for some days and learnt all the ways of Seva. Ram Das then addressed Sri Acharyaji, "I know nothing of the Vedas and the Shastras, but I have a great longing to study your own writings." Sri Acharyaji taught Ram Das all his treatises, after which Ram Das began to experience the Lord's Vraja Leelas in his heart. He composed a poem which he then sang in front of Sri Acharyaji. Rag Gauri. Come, O my lady friend, let's go to that market in Vraja, where the only item for sale is the love of Lord Sri Hari. It's quite a bargain. You only need to give your very life breath in exchange, but then you must keep it and nourish it in your heart. It is a rare acquisition. You cannot purchase it with any amount of gold. Ram Das now says, "My Lord is a priceless jewel, but his maidservants attain him." Just like that. Ram Das sang many more pads of this description to Sri Acharyaji, who was thus very pleased with him. Ram Das then took his leave of Sri Acharyaji and returned home to Gujarat, where he spent many days serving his Sri Thakurji. One day a Vaishnava came to Ram Das's home. Ram Das welcomed him and gave him all hospitality. Ram Das said, "The company of Vaishnavas is so hard to find. It is very nice of you to have come here." The Vaishnava told him, "It is not I, but the Vaishnav Padmanabh Das, whom one should really meet. One can get great grace by just a moment of his association." Ram Das became anxious to meet him. After staying for 4 days, the Vaishnava left. Ram Das took his Sri Thakurji with him and went to Padmanabh Das's home in Kanauj. Padmanabh Das kept Ram Das with him for a whole month, during which time both of them remained immersed in the Lord's pastimes. Ram Das addressed him such: "I am very happy to have heard your praises and to have had your company. Now I would like to have the holy sight of Sri Govardhanaji. Therefore, please will you look after my Sri Thakurji?" Padmanabh Das sat Ram Das's Sri Thakurji next to Sri Matureshji on his bed. After some time on Sri Giriraji, Sri Gosaiji appointed Ram Das as the in-charge of the inner services in the Lord's temple, and Ram Das served Srinathji happily for the rest of his life. When Padmanabh Das left his body, Ram Das's Sri Thakurji came to sit next to Sri Govardhanaji and always stayed close to the beloved Lord. Part 2 continued. During this time, Sri Gosaiji increased and improved Sri Govardhanaji's seva to another opulent level. He always had many food offerings employed many servants, a permanent tailor, a goldsmith, a carpenter, and others. He also established a temple manager with his own place to sit. In this way, he spread the glorious word of his beloved Lord. Glorious worship of his beloved Lord. He appointed Krishna Das to be in charge of all the workers and responsible to him. Sri Gosaiji would come to the temple and serve the Lord through adornments, etc., and spoke to no one. If anyone asked him anything, he would tell them that he didn't know, and to go and speak to Krishna Das. He always kept to this practice. In this way, Krishna Das's affluence and influence increased, and he was fully in charge. Whenever he went, he was accompanied by a chariot, horses, oxen, camels, and wagons, as well as 50 men. He became well known in many areas of the country. He would compose many new songs and sing them to Sri Govardhanaji. In this way, he was a recipient of great grace and a fine Vaishnava. Part 3. One day, Sri Govardhanaji ordered Krishna Das to call Shyam Kumar, the Mridanga drum player, and bring him to Parasoli after the completion of the day's services in the temple. "There we will play the Ras Leela," said the Lord. Krishna Das bowed to the Lord and descended the mountain. Then the Lord told Shyam Kumar, "Go wherever Krishna Das tells you and take your drum with you." Bhav Prakash. This was Srinathji's command to Shyam Kumar. It evolved thus. In the eternal Leela, Shyam Kumar is Sri Vishakhaji's Sakhi named Rasatarangini. Her seva is to play the Mridanga drum. Once after Rasatarangani had gone to sleep, Sri Vishakhaji decided that she would like to sing. She woke up Rasatarangani and asked her to play the Mridanga for her. Vishakhaji began to sing, but Rasatarangani was still half asleep and was making mistakes. Vishakhaji became annoyed and asked her, "What is wrong with your playing today?" Rasa Tarangini replied that she was falling asleep. I can't help it if you suddenly decided to sing. Vishakaji then seized the mridanga drum and told Rasa Tarangini that she was no longer her Sakhi and that she should take birth on earth. You spoke to me in an egotistical way, and this is the result of your so doing. Rasa Tarangini was then born into a family of potters in Mahavan, and that is how he got the name of Sham Kumhar. Amongst his societal group, he was very skilled. Even Sri Gosaiji had placed him in Sri Navaneet Breji's Seva, after initiating him with the Lord's name and Brahma Sambandh. When the process of the increase and improvement of Srinathji's Seva was underway, Krishnadas, the manager, decided it would be nice for Sri Thakurji to have a drummer in his constant music service. Sri Govardhandara himself suggested Shyam Kumar as a suitable candidate and asked Sri Gosaiji to bring him to Sri Giriraji. Sri Gosaiji honoured the wish of the Lord and established him in the service of Srinathji. From that day he played the mridanga for Srinathji and lived near the Giriraj mountain. Part 3 continued. Krishnadas called Shyam Kumhar and said, Sri Govardhanaji wishes to dance the great circle dance at Parasoli tonight. Please bring your mridanga, and we shall proceed there after the completion of the day's services. Shyam Kumhar replied that he had already received such instructions from the Lord, and so he already had his drum with him. After the light ceremony, at the end of the evening services, when the Lord was ready to retire, Krishnadas brought Shyam Kumhar to Chandra Sarovar in Parasoli. They saw that Sri Swamiji and Sri Thakurji were sitting there surrounded by their female attendants. Sri Govardhanaji addressed them thus, Please play the drum, and Krishnadas will sing. It was the full moon of the month of Chaitra, a very bright and divine evening. Shyam Kumhar began to play his mridanga. The spring flowers burst open and Sri Govardhandara started to dance with Sri Swamiji. At that time, Krishnadas sang the following poem in Rag Kedaro. The daughter of Sri Rishabhanuji is dancing with Sri Giridhar, the upholder of the Sri Giriraj mountain. The exciting rhythm with its stops and starts builds and enhances the loving mood of the dance. The cycle of 10 beats combines with the 7 notes of the Kedaro Rag, and the varied rhythms, together with the lovely tunes, magnify that intensity. The dancers all feel the joy of their perfect affection, and their desires reach new fulfillment. Their faces are full of delightful expressions, and their bliss is complete. Seeing the beloved Lord surrounded by thousands of lovely ladies, the splendid moon stops in its tracks. Krishnadas now celebrates this creation of extraordinary loving joy. Part 3 continued. Very pleased by this song, Sri Govardhanaji gave Krishnadas his beloved's jasmine flower garland. Krishnadas felt that he could not be happier, and the hairs on his body stood on end. Immersed in the divine loving mood, he proceeded to sing this poem, Rag Malav. The beloved Lord, best of all dancers, and the Vraja ladies are now dancing in slow and fast rhythms. The drums make the beats, ta-ta-tai, they sound, and the dear-eyed lady smiles. As she sings, her forehead outshines the moon, and the god of love is captured by her eyebrows. With her energetic movements, the bells on her belt ring and her earrings swing. Her face is decorated with drops of sweat. Her ankle bracelets tinkle as does the belt around her hips. They adorn her blue skirts. Now she dances to uneven rhythms, and her footwork enchants the whole universe. Her amazing and unusual dance thrills Sri Krishna, enchanting boy who upholds the Sri Giriraj mountain. She then presents the flower garland laced with sweat to Krishnadas-ji. Rag Malav again. On the rasa dance stage, in the tatatai rhythm, dance the beloved and his most beloved. They sing in the most delightful tones in perfect harmony, and their expressive lovely eyebrows astound the onlooker. That dreamily lovely lady picks up the note of the Malav Rag and continues to the beat as she sings. Sri Govardhandari, the upholder of the Sri Giriraj mountain, the lovely Lord, joins in with her on his flute. The poet Krishnadas, is Lord, declares her to be the zenith of beauty and most lovely of all the ladies. This astounding divine couple have appeared here on earth, bringing with them the delightfully pleasing mellow of love with this artful play. Sri Govinda is the moon, and the gopis are the stars as they dance together in the forest. The whole of the Sri Vrindavan forest is brightened by the glow on the faces of these Vraja maidens that bring joy to all. These ladies of Gokul are enchanting with eyes like lotuses that steal the heart. Lotus petals are shamed by the tender beauty of their hands as they dance with their most beloved and his most beloved. The Lord swells with loving mellow, and she is the embodiment of divine affection, an incredibly lovely form. The poet Krishnadas now states that his Lord, the upholder of the Sri Giriraj mountain, is the supreme appreciator of heartfelt love and the supreme form of loving nectar. Rag Malav again. Sri Radha is teaching Sri Krishna how to play the flute. She places her fingers over the 7 holes, wraps around her arms around his shoulders, and begins to sing most sweetly. With various rhythms she plays the raga Kedaro, and her eyes dance along with them. The poet Krishnadas now celebrates over them again and again, surrendering to the wondrous wealth that is darling Sri Krishna, who upholds the mountain, and his beloved who steals his heart. Part 3 continued. Krishnadas sang many more songs in this mode. The drummer Shyam Kumhar played very nicely. Srinathji, Sri Swaminiji and the Vraja ladies enjoyed their astonishing dance. By the grace of Sri Acharyaji, the Lord was so kind to Krishnadas. After that, Srinathji, Sri Swaminiji and the gopis all disappeared, and Krishnadas and Shyam Kumhar came back to Jetipura carrying the mridanga. There Krishnadas engaged himself in singing to the Lord at all times of the day. So we will rest here today. Tomorrow will be part 4 of the story of Krishnadas. Sab Vaishnavan ko Sadar Saprem. Jai Shri Krishna. Shri Vallabhacharya ji ki jai ho. Krishnadas ji ki jai ho. Shri Govardhan Nath ji ki jai ho. Jai Jai Shri Radhe.